Honourable members.
On May 17th, Parliament approved a record 72 trillion shillings budget for the financial year that will begin in July. Although Parliament approved the budget within the timeline provided for by the Public Finance Management Act, there are concerns that the last-minute revisions which raised the budget by a quarter were not critically scrutinized. On the floor of Parliament that day, a section of MPs warned that they were being stampeded to pass the budget without the scrutiny of the sectoral committees.
Now passing a budget on behalf of the people of Uganda, an addition of 14 trillion by ambush. We are passing this budget by ambush. We have not scrutinized it.
So these gentlemen and ladies and Parliament, for heaven's sake, should have been the firewall to say, wait a minute, executive, you are damn wrong. But what happens to this institution where I sit in, with titles, honorable colleagues, is that we passed a budget without this debate.
However, Julius Mukunda, the head of Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, a non-government organization, says Parliament failed to perform one of its core functions and should have demanded for more time.
You have an undisciplined kid. You just don't go on the street complaining that you have an undisciplined. You discipline the kid. So if you have an undisciplined government that brings things on the last minute and you keep entertaining that, you are actually part of the problem. Because if in the first instance, because we know that on an annual, every year, government brings the minute on the last change, on the last minute, brings changes at the last minute. If in the first instance Parliament said no, government would have stopped that behavior. But Parliament knows that there are critical things we should bring on the last minute. And we say, oh, we have a constitutional crisis. It can never be a constitutional crisis. It can never be a constitutional crisis.
Officials at the Finance Ministry we approached refused to speak on camera. However, they say the budget was passed within the time provided by the law. The Public Finance Management Act provides key timeframes for handling the budget up to the point at which it is declared to the public. The budget-making exercise begins with accounting officers submitting budget framework papers to the Finance Ministry by mid-November. The Finance Minister presents these papers to the Cabinet for approval and is then required to submit them to Parliament by the end of December. The proposals are then referred to the relevant committees for scrutiny and debate before Parliament reviews and approves them by 1st February. Thereafter, the Executive presents the budget estimate for the new financial year to Parliament by 1st April. The estimates are again referred to the budget and sectoral committees for review. Parliament is required to consider and approve the budget by 31st May, whereupon it is sent to the President for assent. The approved budget is read to the public in mid-June and then takes effect on 1st July. Parliamentary records showed that the Finance Minister presented the budget estimate on 28th March, 3 days shy of the April 1st deadline dictated by the law. However, the 14 trillion shillings revision to the budget was tabled on 16th May and passed the next day. This has raised concerns about whether MPs were able to critically scrutinize the allocations in few hours, yet they had more than 10 days available to them for the process.
But too, government has the prerogative power to change the budget anytime they want. They have it's illegal. They can come and say, no, what, we had given you figures, but now we want to change. They have. But it is you, members of Parliament, say, okay, thank you very much, but these figures have come very late, we'll finish the process. Can you please bring them next financial year? You can do that. But they are not able to do that, and I tell you the reason as to why. For example, members from the East in this core agenda will not throw away the core agenda. Why? Because there was compensation for people in Teso, and there is the building of Kibua Stadium. Who is not going to do that? Because this is an election year. We understand that. Everybody was I can call it, you are bribed through that process of saying, no, you have some money for your people. And then you went ahead and passed it.
Apart from the size of the budget, economic pundits are also critical about the new high revenue target of 32 trillion shillings. Much of it will come from taxes. In the last 6 years, the Uganda Revenue Authority has only met or exceeded its revenue target twice. Uganda Revenue Authority currently collects only 14% of GDP in tax every year, lower than the target of 22%.
And now that we have given them an additional 2 trillion for them to collect money is something that that is going to be a huge task for them. And that's why we are afraid that the amount of money they have put on enforcement is no longer going to come smiling. They've been knocking once on your door. This time probably they are not going to knock. They won't be able to knock. They probably want to bang the door inside and tell you, please pay up. Thank you.
Experts blame the low rate on the large size of the informal economy.
How do we reform URA to the extent that it can be in position to leverage the nature of our economy? Because the nature of our economy is that it's largely informal based. Now, the nature of the tax collector is that it is designed for the formal economy. So if you have a tax collector that is designed for a formal economy, which formal economy is small, you're kind of having a mismatch. So we, in a way, have to restructure our taxman to the extent that the taxman can mimic the nature of the economy.
With the taxman unable to reach many in the informal economy, more pain is exerted on the small group of individuals and corporate entities in the formal sectors. Figures by the Uganda Revenue Authority show the number of taxpayers has grown to slightly over 3.5 million recorded in the 2022-23 financial year.
The persons of your kind and myself are few in this country. Now, to make matters worse, firms that a replica of NTV, at least in terms of formalization of activities, are equally a few. To suggest that whenever you're pressing hard on tax rates, you're pretty much targeting the same persons. So our argument now should be taken to, can we expand the tax base?
Though the economists support certain tax exemptions, they say the current mode of application lacks transparency. In the most recent report to June 2023, the Auditor General noted that over 1.4 trillion shillings is foregone annually in tax exemptions and waivers to some 36 companies. They include 22 companies that are not meeting stipulated requirements like job creation.
What signal are you sending to other sectors? Won't it incentivize a clamor for tax exemptions across other civil servants or public servants, so to speak? So, the justification for tax exemptions across Parliament, I think, might not necessarily exist because I don't see any economic justification for it, especially for an economy that has a huge debt burden. We should be thinking in terms of fiscal consolidation.
The tax body was contacted for comment about its plans to raise the target of 32 trillion shillings, but easier to respond. For those already on the tax register, it is time to look busy. Uganda Revenue Authority is coming. Jackson Onyango, NTV.